It can be hard balancing taking care of kids, senior loved ones, and yourself. Remember, it's okay to ask for help. There's a reason 29 million families have turned to Care.com. Find background-checked sitters, nannies, and senior caregivers who can help with everything from watching kids after school to senior meal prep. Whether you need full-time, part-time, or even occasional help, you can view rates and book highly rated caregivers that fit your budget and schedule. Get the help you need with Care.com.
It's Saturday the 24th of August. I'm Ciara Evans, and this was a week that saw the government tackle violence against women. Kamala Harris accept the Democratic nomination, a super yacht sink off the coast of Sicily, and Chapel Rowan speak out about fan behaviour.
Grab a cup of something hot, put up your feet, and get up to speed on the 7 biggest stories of the week. This is the Standout 7 from the Smart 7.
It's news,
but not the news.
It's been all business this week for the new Labour government as they launched a number of reviews and operations designed to improve life across the UK. Home Secretary Yvette Cooper ordered a review of the UK's counter-extremism strategy with the proposal that extreme misogyny will now be treated as a form of terrorism in the UK. It comes amidst rising cases of violence against women and girls, with The Guardian reporting that over 50 women have allegedly been killed by men so far this year, whilst the British Transport Police recorded more than 11,000 violent offences against women and girls by the end of March. Labour's Jess Phillips says tackling misogyny is an urgent priority.
It's not okay anymore to ignore the massive growing threat caused by online hatred towards women, and for us to ignore it, it fails women and has failed women.
On Monday, the government launched Operation Early Dawn, which is intended to ease pressure on Britain's overcrowded prison system. The fallback plan will see defendants held in police cells until prison places become available, and it may lead to delays and cancellations in court dates. More than 300 people have been remanded in custody in the aftermath of the recent riots, and more are expected to be arrested as investigations continue. But Michelle Healy-Casey says that the emergency measures are just a sticking plaster over a serious issue in the criminal justice system. Mark Fairhurst is the national chair of the Prison Officers Association, and he told BBC Breakfast that the level of charges against the rioting has left them with little choice.
We've initiated Operation Early Dawn. So basically the easiest way to describe it is 1 in, 1 out. So as people get released, we can then pick up people from police cells and take them to court, and we will triage that 3 times a day.
The Ministry of Justice has already brought over 500 new cells on stream, and from mid-September, thousands of prisoners will be released after 40% of their sentences. Speaking in Northern Ireland, where he was meeting with PSNI officers who were injured in the recent riots, Prime Minister Keir Starmer said that the level of criminality we've seen is unacceptable.
The disorder is intolerable. It is incapable of justification. It's clearly racist, and it does not represent the modern, forward-looking Northern Ireland that I know that this place is.
Also on Monday, the Children's Commissioner launched a report that shows that the number of strip searches of children has fallen significantly since 2020. Numbers are down by 42%, but Commissioner Rachel D'Souza is warning that some searches will prove to be unnecessary, and the police forces have a big job to do in adopting appropriate safeguarding guidelines. The issue of police searches of children first came to public attention after the case of Girl Q, a 15-year-old black girl who was strip searched by police at her school in Hackney in 2020. 3 Met police officers were recommended for gross misconduct charges over the incident following an investigation. D'Souza said strip searches should really only be used in life or death situations.
The majority of them are for suspicion of drugs. Well, hold on. Think about safeguarding first, make sure there's an appropriate adult, preferably think about another way to deal with this. It's a deeply intimate, personal search that a child would take a long time to get over.
On Wednesday, Home Secretary Yvette Cooper announced more new plans, this time to target people smuggling gangs as part of a crackdown on illegal migration. She said the National Crime Agency will hire up to 100 specialists to focus on breaking up the gangs as the immigration issue moves up the government's agenda following the recent violent protest. Home Officer Minister Seema Malhotra Hotra said the government is planning a major programme of returns for those who are here illegally.
It's really important that we see an order brought back into the chaos that we've seen for far too long. And that's why the steps we're taking to see the highest levels of returns that we'll have seen over the last 5 years is a really important part of making sure that those who have no right to stay know that they will be returned.
Amnesty International then accused the government of reheating Tory rhetoric over immigration and said they should be focused on creating safe routes for people to reach the UK instead. And former Home Secretary and Tory leadership candidate James Cleverly wasn't too impressed either.
What the government have said is that since taking office they've returned just 200 people, which is frankly pathetic. They say they're going to recruit up to 100 extra officers. And again, that is a pathetic response to a really challenging situation.
And the week ended for the new Labour government back where it began with a spotlight on crimes against women and girls. A new report from His Majesty's Inspector of the Constabulary, Michelle Skier, highlights just how much work will need to be done in this area though. The report examined 9 police forces to see how they investigated rape and serious sexual assault offences, and it makes for grim reading. It found investigators are regularly diverted to police crowds at festivals or football games, which slows investigations and leads to cancelled meetings with victims. Operation Soteria is intended to improve matters, and Mrs. Skier says a victim-focused approach can still pay off.
We still found gaps in resourcing, but despite the challenges, we felt Soteria presents a really major opportunity.
This week saw the Democrats gather together in Chicago to formally nominate a vice president and presidential candidate for the upcoming elections in November. On Monday, President Biden was the first big name on stage to give his support to the woman who has replaced him on the ticket. Biden gave an emotional speech calling Trump a loser along the way, but ultimately seemed genuinely happy to see the next generation stepping up and pledged his support for Harris and Walz.
I can honestly say I'm more optimistic about the future than I was when I was elected as a 29-year-old United States Senator. I mean it. Folks, we just have to remember who we are. We're the United States of America.
Tuesday saw day 2 of the Democratic Party's convention in Chicago, and the main event of the night were the speeches by the Democratic Party power couple and Chicago natives Michelle and Barack Obama, who addressed a packed convention centre. Introduced by his wife Michelle, who told the audience that hope was making a comeback, Barack called Trump weird and obsessed with crowd sizes and pledged his support for both Walz and Harris as Democratic nominees.
We shouldn't be the world's policemen, and we can't eradicate every cruelty and injustice in the world. But America can be and must be a force for good. That's what Kamala Harris believes, and so do most Americans.
Thursday saw the Democratic Convention wrap up in Chicago after 4 nights of primetime TV for the Harris-Walz campaign. The overriding theme was joy and hope, with strong speeches from Democratic Party legends like Al Sharpton, Bill and Hillary Clinton, and even a guest appearance from Oprah during the week. But late on Thursday night, Kamala finally took to the stage as the Democratic Party's official presidential nominee. In her 40-minute speech, she talked about her upbringing, committed herself to ceasefire talks in Palestine, continued support for Ukraine and repealing abortion rights, and highlighted the dangers of re-electing Donald Trump.
On behalf of Americans like the people I grew up with, people who work hard, chase their dreams, and look out for one another, on behalf of everyone whose story could only be written in the greatest nation on earth, I accept your nomination to be President of the United States of America.
Last weekend saw 2 vital Russian supply bridges over the river Seam destroyed by Ukrainian forces, as Ukraine claimed it now controls more than 80 Russian settlements in the Kursk region. Russia has accused Ukraine of using American rocket launchers to destroy the bridges, which they said will hamper civilian evacuations. In his weekly Sunday night address, President Zelensky spoke about the reasons behind the recent incursions, saying the main aim was to create a buffer zone to protect Ukraine. Ukrainian Defence Advisor Yuri Sak agreed.
We need to degrade their capacity to attack Ukraine. And this is the primary objective: protect Ukrainian people and degrade Russian army so that it stops terrorizing our country.
On Tuesday, Russia confirmed that Ukraine had now managed to destroy 3 key bridges in the Kursk region, which will greatly complicate Russian attempts to repulse the ongoing Ukrainian incursion. With Ukraine claiming to control 1,250 square kilometres of Russian territory, fierce fighting was reported as the week progressed. Russia's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Sergei Lavrov, said that there will be no peace talks as long as Ukraine continues its assault.
The President said very clearly that after the attacks on the Kursk region, not even attacks, but the invasion of the Kursk region, there can be no talk of any negotiations. We will certainly assess this situation a little later.
Russia's forces continued to push into the Donbass and announced that they'd captured the New York settlement on Wednesday. Sky's military analyst Mike Clark says the twin offences have created an unpredictable battlefield dynamic.
You know, war is about chaos. It's about creating chaos and coping with chaos on your side better than the other guy. And both sides are now trying to create a bit of chaos for the other.
By Thursday, Ukrainian forces were more than 20 miles inside the Kursk region, according to their army chief Alexander Syrsky. Ukraine also launched a massive attack directly on Moscow, with Russia reporting 11 drones shot down. Russian forces continued their own push inside Ukraine, inching closer and closer to the key town of Pokrovsk as Ukraine began to evacuate families and children. There are 2 nuclear plants in the middle of the ongoing combat, one in Kursk and the other in Zaporizhzhia in Ukraine. And Director General of the International Atomic Energy Agency, Rafael Grossi, said both sides need to exercise caution.
We could have a very serious situation any moment, because when you see the amount of military activity surrounding the plant, you can see the physical integrity of the facility is being challenged.
The push and pull between Ukraine and Russia continued on Thursday as Ukraine launched strikes against the Marinovka airbase in Volgograd and also struck a ferry loaded with fuel beside the Kerch Bridge in Crimea. Meanwhile, Russian troops continued to gain ground in Ukraine's Donbass region, inching ever closer to the key city of Pokrovsk. Former Defence Secretary Sir Ben Wallace says the West needs to let Ukraine use all resources at its disposal to put pressure on Russia.
One of the best ways to reinforce the deterrent to Russia is to make sure that nothing is ever taken off the table. And if necessary, we give Ukraine the tools to finish the job, to win.
By the end of the week, Putin had summoned a meeting of his Security Council where he said Ukraine attempted to attack the Kursk nuclear plant, but offered no evidence.
The enemy tried to attack the nuclear power plant. I'm asking you to prepare right now the necessary orders and start executing them immediately.
This week, the ongoing search for a peaceful solution to the war in Gaza saw US Secretary of State Anthony Blinken arrive in Tel Aviv to push for a ceasefire deal in Gaza. His arrival on Sunday followed talks in Doha where the US presented a modified proposal aimed at satisfying both Israel and Hamas. But Hamas has rejected the proposal, with a source claiming it would still allow a reduced IDF presence along Gaza's southern border with Egypt. Hamas has always insisted on a full withdrawal of Israeli troops from the Gaza Strip, but an Israeli source has suggested that a full withdrawal could happen if other border measures were in place. At the start of the week, Daniel Sheck from the Hostages and Missing Families Forum said there was cautious optimism about a possible deal.
It looks like the mediators are more eager to achieve success than the two sides negotiating themselves. So it's really a question of determination and will.
Blinken met for 3 hours with Israel PM Netanyahu on Monday, and that meeting was followed by a positive statement from the Israeli government. The Secretary of State said that he felt that this remains a decisive moment.
I'm here as part of an intensive diplomatic effort on President Biden's instructions to try to get this agreement to the line and ultimately over the line. It is time for it to get done. It's also time to make sure that no one takes any steps that could derail this process.
Louise Wateridge from the UN's Palestinian Aid Agency, UNRWA, said it's a matter of great urgency for the people of Gaza.
Just 11% of the Gaza Strip is in this so-called humanitarian zone. So finding safety for anyone in the Gaza Strip is extremely difficult, and you can see the trauma the population has experienced throughout this 10 months.
At least 12 Palestinians were killed in an airstrike on a school on Tuesday, although Israeli forces claimed they had struck a Hamas base embedded in the site. Meanwhile, the bodies of 6 Israeli hostages were recovered on Tuesday after an operation near the city of Khan Yunis. The 6 men were abducted by Hamas on October 7th, were known to have died in recent months, according to their families. families based on IDF intelligence briefings. There was no immediate progress on the ceasefire talks, although US Secretary of State Anthony Blinken was in Egypt and then travelled to Doha, where it was hoped talks might resume later on in the week. Daniel Levy is president of the US Middle East Project, and he's sceptical that any real progress can be made.
Wishful thinking is not a policy, spin is not a policy, but it can get you through news cycles. The BBC and other Western media are reporting that maybe there's a deal being done, but I can tell you that in the region, no one is buying it.
Associate Professor of History at Georgetown University in Qatar, Abdullah Al-Aryan, also didn't sound convinced that talks will lead to peace either.
This is just bad political theatre. This is just an attempt to actually allow the war to be prolonged, allow the Israeli onslaught to continue. It's meant to keep at bay the possibility of retaliation from the likes of Iran and Hezbollah.
By Wednesday, there was still no sign of a breakthrough in peace talks, despite President Biden making another call to the Israeli Prime Minister, who is still not commenting publicly on the ceasefire negotiations. Meanwhile, Hezbollah launched a fresh wave of rocket attacks against Israel as it appeared tensions were escalating once again. Yizid Saig, a senior fellow at Malcolm H. Kerr Carnegie Middle East Centre, says that it's clear that there are politics at play.
The US is simply playing this game where Israel gets to set conditions, change conditions, move the goalposts, and then the US comes along and blames Hamas for the outcome.
Still to come in the Standout 7, GCSE results are out and Chapel Rowan has a word of advice for her fans.
Right after this.
This summer, Instacart presents famous summer flavors coming to your front door. Or pool. Or hotel.
Your grocery delivery has arrived, sir.
That was faster than room service.
No violins in the lobby.
Oh, seriously? Anyway, sit back, relax, and get delivery in as fast as 30 minutes. Starring your favorite snacks, drinks, and more. Download Instacart for free delivery on your first 3 orders. Rated H for hungry audiences. Offer valid for a limited time. Minimum $10 per order. Excludes restaurants. Additional terms and fees apply.
Welcome back.
This week we were gripped by the tragic story by the super yacht that sank off Sicily on Sunday night. During the week, search parties struggled to explore the sunken vessel, with local rescuers taking it in turns to try and access the 56-metre super yacht. It appears to have been capsized by a freak water spout during a storm, but you can be sure there'll be many true crime podcasts exploring what really happened. While some people on board the yacht escaped on a lifeboat during the extreme storm that caused the vessel to sink, 6 people are still missing by midweek, including tech entrepreneur Mike Lynch and his daughter, along with the international chairman of Morgan Stanley and other high-profile guests. The UK's ambassador to Italy, Edward Llewellyn, was in Porticello near where the yacht sank. He said he and his team were doing everything they can to help.
I've spoken to most of the British survivors, but I've tried to underline to them that we'll do whatever we can practically to help in this very difficult, distressing, heartbreaking situation. I think that's the most important thing we as an embassy can do.
Italian diving teams finally accessed the wreckage of the luxury yacht that capsized off the coast of Sicily on Wednesday. Dr. Jamie Pringle is a reader in forensic geoscience at Keele University, and he told Sky News that the search and recovery operation is extremely difficult.
You've got very strong currents that happen in different depths, poor visibility. Obviously, you've got all of the debris field will no doubt be around the vessel, both outside and inside. It's going to be very difficult for the dive team.
There was a real feeling of the end of summer on Thursday as GCSE results were delivered across the country, with grades falling for a third year running. The students getting their exam results this year started Year 7 just before COVID kicked in, and they've been through a lot, but results are now back to 2019 levels. There's also a serious gap between results in the South and the Midlands and North, with grades even lower in Northern Ireland and Wales. Schools Minister Catherine McKinnell said the results highlight serious issues in the education system.
We recognise not only is it the right thing for every young person that they are given every opportunity, some of the disparity in admissions to universities, for example, it's a stark difference, and one that we are absolutely determined to challenge, because where you live should be no barrier to opportunity.
And for those who have failed, there's not much comfort on the statistics for results either, with approximately 350,000 students having to take the English or maths paper again. Typically, the pass rate for resits is under 25%, and Lee Elliott Major, who is a professor of social mobility at the University of Exeter, says the system is failing young people.
We do have a national scandal. We have a huge number who still don't get a grade 4 when they resit those exams. So I think you'd have to work closely closely with teachers to think about a more nuanced policy on resits, but it certainly needs a review.
Singer Chapel Roan has been busy becoming an overnight success for about 7 years now. She was signed to Atlantic Records at just 17, was dropped after her first album and reinvented herself as an independent artist. She's been the hottest ticket in 2024, touring with Olivia Rodrigo and recording to the largest ever crowd at Lollapalooza. And now the chart success is following. But she's not sure if she wants to be super famous. And now she's gone viral for calling out some of the stranger parts of her fan base.
If you saw a random woman on the street, would you yell at her from the car window? Would you harass her in public? Would you stalk her family? Would you follow her around? This is a lady you don't know, and she doesn't know you at all. I'm a random bitch. You're a random bitch. Just think about that for a second.
You've been listening to The Smart 7. We'll be back tomorrow at 7 a.m. Hit that follow button and have a great day. Give us 7 minutes, we'll give you the world.
It can be hard balancing taking care of kids, senior loved ones, and yourself. Remember, it's okay to ask for help. There's a reason 29 million families have turned to Care.com. Find background-checked sitters, nannies, and senior caregivers who can help with everything from watching kids after school to senior meal prep. Whether you need full-time, part-time, or even occasional help, you can view rates and book highly rated caregivers that fit your budget and schedule. Get the help you need with Care.com.